Crossunders 86, fueling 1600 broken, visibility 7 nautical miles, altimeter setting at 3008. Now time for all personnel not involved in flight operations to leave the flight deck and catwalk area. Those remaining on the flight deck must get into the complete and proper flight deck uniform. Helmets on and securely fastened. Goggles down. Sleeve rolled down. Life vest on and securely fastened. Check your pockets for loose gear and bonds. Make sure all your tools are accounted for. Check chocks, chains, loose gear about the deck. Stand clear of intakes, prop arcs, tail blades, and tail rulers. Ensure exhaust is not blowing on ordnance and control services are clear of all personnel. Start the go aircraft. Start them up.
Well, welcome folks. This is our line at El Dafra, VFA 25. You can see the hangarettes where we park our aircraft and the south and west ramp where we marshal. Maintenance, ops, and personnel buildings are down at the bottom there. That's where our ready room is, where we're conducting this brief. In fact, this is our ready room here. You can see the guys getting ready for the brief. This is our admin spaces. And finally, hey guys, come on, I haven't even started yet. Golly. Come on, guys. It's not that bad. And yes, this is a formation training brief. This slide covers the weather and ROE. Notice that it's peacetime ROE, weapons hold. This slide is for folks who ponder life's mysteries. All great information, so feel free to stop the video and read. The most pertinent part is the final statement. Flying formation in real life is easier than flying formation in a sim. DCS is very good, but real life is slightly better. This slide is a little more interesting. What's in a formation? The strike leader is a senior member of the air group, the CAG, squadron skippers, department heads, sometimes even an experienced, respected senior lieutenant. The division lead is the most experienced member of a 3 or 4 plane flight and quite often not the most senior member. The section leader is the second most experienced aviator and is number 3 in a 3 or 4 plane flight. There are 2 wingmen. Number 4 is the most senior of the 2. Number 2 is the junior member of the flight. The newest nugget in the squadron is often paired with a squadron's commanding officer. Have a mission brief before you spawn. What's briefed here will not have to be covered once the sim is running. This slide outlines some of the topics you might want to cover. I'm sure you can think of other stuff. For today's mission, we will marshal on VFA 25's west ramp at El Dafra. We will perform a section go and demo an 8-second roll. We will perform square crossunders, break up and rendezvous, and overheads, prior to heading out to Stennis for 2 Case 3 practice section approaches. When you first spawn, take care of individual items, things that pertain to your own jet. Start the jet and configure communications for both ATC and intra-flight. Set up navigation, TACAN, ICLS, enter coordinates if necessary. Set up and select your route sequence. Make sure your skin and modex are correct. Check your fuel and ordnance loadout. Once you're ready to go, proceed to marshal and final check your wingmen. Check their skins, ordnance, lights, canopy, flaps, etc. Cover last-minute items and questions. Summarize the departure and rendezvous plan. When you're both ready to go, call for taxi and then begin your individual takeoff checklist. The next 5 slides have a ton of information about formation, and depending on your background, this could be a huge waste of your time or could be really good information to know. If you are not familiar with formation terminology, I recommend you read through it. Either way, I'm not going to cover it in detail here. A lot of this information will be used and discussed during the flight. Again, if you think you might benefit, pause the video. The takeaway from this for flight leads: if you have a new wingman and he intends to fly all or some of these maneuvers, you will need to be smooth, steady, and patient. The more knowledge you have, the better. Okay folks, this is the flight outline. We will spawn into a running aircraft. Coordinates for the flight have already been loaded. Bullseye is waypoint 1. The rest of the waypoints mark out the 4 corners of overland MOA. The default sequence should be selected. That's sequence 1, which will draw the outline of overland on the HSI. We will marshal on the west ramp. Following takeoff and departure, we will head south towards overland. En route to overland, we will practice square and normal crossunders. Once in the mole, we will practice both left and right rendezvous, lead changes, and some overhead maneuvers. After departing the mole, we will proceed to Stennis, and according to today's overhead message, her daily changing call sign is Charlie Oscar. After checking with Marshall, we can expect to be vectored to final for 2 practice Case 3 section approaches, 1 each. Finally, we will depart the pattern and re-enter through the initial for a Case 2 recovery. Any questions? Okay, this is our comm plan. After startup, please be on button 4 on radio 1 and button 1 on radio 2. Check in using radio 2 button 1. We'll be at button 1 on radio 2 all day. En route to the mole, we will be on button 11 AWACS. While in the mole, we will check in and monitor button 6 range control. En route to Stennis, we'll again be at button 11. At 50 nautical miles from Stennis, we'll contact Marshall on button 3, and we will remain up button 3 for approach and LSO during our practice period. When we finally enter Case 2 pattern, we will be up button 2, and we'll get the LSO there as well. Okay, I just included this card in case you want to build your own mission or follow along. Good pilots carry all the approach plates they need, like these 2 here. Okay, looking over at the clock, looks like it's time to walk. So let's conclude this brief and head out to the airplanes. See you there. Okay, folks, here I am in the airplane on the VFA 25 line at Al Dhafra. Luther and I are here to get this airplane going. I've got it set up for this formation flight, and here in the hangar is where I want to take care of things that are pretty much aircraft specific. For example, making sure the lights are up, the oxygen is on, my exterior lights are on, and we could take a quick peek at that. And it's pretty noisy out there, so I'll come back in. I can run the flaps through their checks to make sure that they're okay and leave them in the half position. I'm here at the field, so the field switches in field. The anti-skid is on for the takeoff. I got my armament switches off. I've got my display set up the way I like them. Checklist on the left, FCS on the right, so I can see what my flight controls are doing. I've already reset them, and I've set 12 degrees nose up, which is standard for field takeoff. I've set a bingo fuel of 51, which is for today, since we're going out to the ship, my max trap with my current configuration, or close to it. I may want to later add a few 100 pounds to that, but right now that's good. Both engines are running. I've got a display on my HSI that shows the area that we're going to go to. That's the Overland MOA. And I'll bring up a real quick kneeboard card. The Overland Restricted Area, or MOA, is marked by this radial and distance on the Al Dhafra TACAN. It's also outlined by these 4 coordinates here, which are mark out the display here. I'm going to change the range here real quick so you can see what I've done. That's a 160 mile scale, so that's bounded by 40 and 80 miles. The 210 to the 2, I think it was 40 or 50. Anyways, that's the area we're going to go to. I'm going to put it back at a range that's more usable. There we go. And I've set my radar altimeter to 50 feet so it doesn't ding on me during the takeoff roll. I've already got my lights set. I'm already in nav. I've got my ECM gear off and my dispensers currently off. We are in peacetime ROE for today. And I think that's pretty much it. So to let Luther know that we're ready to taxi, I'm going to go ahead and turn on my taxi lights and turn on my high gain for nose gear steering to get out of the hangar here. And as we taxi by Luther, I'll give him a quick salute, and off we go. And I'm going to meet Hollywood over in Marshall, where we'll go things that are flight specific as opposed to the airplane specific things that I just completed. And as we're taxiing out here, I'll take a quick look to make sure I haven't forgot anything. Oh, one thing we may want to add is we want to be at button 4 for takeoff, or for taxi, takeoff, and departure. Since we don't have an ATC specifically here, we're going to use that for human-specific conversations. And we'll just taxi in here and come to a stop. Right about there. That's good. Pretty much even. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off my taxi lights now. And we'll wait here for Hollywood until he gets here. And he should be coming out here shortly.
We call this our west ramp. We are in Marshall together in order to accomplish flight-related items. Lee will check Wingman's aircraft, and the Wingman will check Lee's aircraft. They will look for the correct skin, motics, and ordnance loadout. They will also ensure the canopies are down, flaps are set to half, and external lights are configured correctly. If necessary, they will discuss briefly their takeoff and departure plan, any weather concerns, and any other questions that have come up since the flight brief. With that said, we have one change. I intend to reduce the number of overheads in favor of performing several tactical formation turns. I have included a slide that describes each turn. Lastly, after being cleared to taxi, we will begin our individual takeoff checklists, and this will continue until just prior to the last item, arming the ejection seats, which will be accomplished when the flight is cleared onto the runway.
Ground, Fist 407, flight at 2, request taxi with Bravo.
407, taxi to runway 31 left via November.
Okay, here we are arriving at the runway. If you are not quite ready to go, you may want to taxi to the hammerhead like we are here. However, if you are ready to go, then just taxi up to the hold short line and hopefully they'll clear you right onto the runway.
Okay, and if you're all set.
2 is ready.
Okay,
Tower,
let's
Fist
do it.
407, request takeoff.
Fist 407, line up and wait, runway 31 left.
Roger, 407, line up and wait, runway 31 left.
Fist 407, clear for takeoff, climb, maintain 2000, turn right, heading 360.
Fist 407 is clear for takeoff, climb and maintain 2000, turn right, heading 360.
Okay, nose gear and low, seats armed.
A section go is utilized when it's important to be together shortly after takeoff. For example, when the weather is so low that it precludes use of a running rendezvous. In real life, the section go is performed using the same trim setting F-18s use for field takeoffs, 12 degrees nose up. However, in the sim, we found that a flatter setting, like 8 degrees nose up, by both aircraft results in a smoother takeoff. Also in real life, mid-range burner is used by the lead to give his wingman power to play with. In the sim, if lead on brake release goes to mill and then backs off to 94%, mill -6, this resulted in a smoother takeoff and a more manageable transition for the wingman. Obviously, feel free to experiment and let us know. A good flight lead is many things, but he is certainly smooth, predictable, and on speed. He sets the parameters during his brief, and he must fly what he briefs. Flight safety is at risk if he is careless, sloppy, or both. Be considerate, but don't baby your wingman.
Ready and spooled up.
Okay, and I'm spooling up now.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
At liftoff, lead should set an attitude and let the aircraft fly itself off the ground. Don't let the nose climb above 5 degrees nose up. The wingman should hold his nose down slightly while watching the leader's nose gear, and when it breaks the ground, he should relax forward stick slightly and allow the aircraft to become airborne. Then maintain position while continuing to watch lead's nose gear for the start of the transition. Be ready to raise gear and then flaps. Raising the gear should be delayed for several seconds after liftoff to ensure that the wingman is well clear of the ground. Gear and flaps should be raised together as part of the same command. The transition should be smooth as possible, not rushed. Gear up, pause, flaps up. Remember, the wingman is flying formation. Lead should anticipate reducing power to maintain 250 knots until the transition is complete. The transition should be completed before entering clouds. A running/turning rendezvous is used when weather is above 1505 typically, when there are more than 2 aircraft in the formation, when aircraft configurations don't match, or for simplicity. Each aircraft performs their own takeoff. A rendezvous below the clouds is utilized to marshal the flight. A slow speed of 250 knots is normally briefed as a rendezvous airspeed due to airspeed restrictions by ATC to facilitate a rendezvous within the airport traffic area and or to shorten the time it takes to complete. Closure is sometimes difficult to see, especially during twilight or marginal visibility periods. Wingmen often offset either right or left up to 200 feet of lead's aircraft until intercepting the rendezvous bearing line. Initial closure can be as high as 50 knots, but should be slowed to 30 knots within 1,000 feet and to 10 knots upon intercepting the rendezvous bearing line.
Okay, picking it up here. I'm going to slowly add a little bit of power and come up and right.
Flying in the GU is an important formation skill. Smoothness by lead is critical, as is focus by the wingman. Both need to ensure that the wingman is close aboard before entering clouds. Frequency changes should be avoided if possible.
Okay, rolling it out and leveling it off.
Minor overshoots in heading and altitude are possible when trying to be smooth. My comment on that, don't sweat the small stuff.
Fist 407, contact departure at this frequency.
Fist 407, roger. Break. Departure. Fist 407, level at 2000.
Fist 407, climb and maintain 10,000, turn right, heading 130.
Fist 407, roger. Climbing to 10,000, turning right, heading 130.
And continuing to climb. Okay, you can kick it out for a few minutes.
Departure. Fist 407 on top at 5. Request own nav to overland MOA.
Fist 407, climb and maintain 15,000. Clear to own nav to overland. Contact Overlord on 344.025.
407, roger. Climbing to 15,000. Cleared own nav to overland. Contacting Overlord on 344.025. 2. Switch to Overlord on button 11.
Copy.
You okay in the power?
It's a little high. I'm tickling the burner a couple times here and there, but it's, maybe if you gave me 3%, it might be okay.
Overlord, Fist 407 checking in. Flight of 2 proceeding direct to Overland, climbing to 15,000.
Fist 407, Overlord. Roger. Picture is clear.
Okay, just about to level off here if you want to move in to do a couple of square crossunders.
Okay.
For our purposes, there are 2 types of crossunders, the square crossunder and the flat salad bowl crossunder. Square crossunders are used in basic flight training to demonstrate to students the constituent parts of the crossunder in dramatic form. Square crossunders are difficult. As proof, please watch Hollywood and Bonds as they each attempt to fly one. The fleet crossunder has the appearance of a flat salad bowl where all the parts of the square crossunder are put together in a fluid motion. There are 3 parts of the square crossunder: the down part, the crossing part, and the up part. The rules for the square crossunder are: 1. The distance the wingman's nose is aft of the lead's nose should remain constant. 2. The wingman should pause at each transition point for at least 2 seconds. 3. Each part should be completed smoothly without stops and starts. 4. The crossing part should have constant step down. 5. The final position should mirror the starting position. The starting position is the close cruise position, which is defined as bearing line, nose of wingtip on the missile rail, even with the pilot's helmet. Step down, nose of the wingtip missile rail, on or slightly above the lex. Distance, the AP tailpipes should both be visible as ovals.
I see. Do another one of those.
LaRousse cruise formation should be the squadron standard for getting from here to there when weather and tactics don't dictate otherwise.
Boy, it's tough. There's nothing easy about it.
Yeah, it's a good exercise.
Yeah, it is.
Overlord, Fist 407, approaching Overland, request entry.
Fist 407, cleared entry into Overland. Monitor my frequency, 250.0. Report leaving.
407, cleared entry, monitoring 250.0, will go.
Okay, let's go, let's switch button 6.
Okay. Two.
Range control, Fist 407 is up.
Roger, Fist 407. You are cleared to operate unrestricted within Overland MOA from 10 to 20,000. Report when complete.
Copy. Copy. Fist 407 is cleared from 10 to 20,000 feet within overland. Wilco.
The breakup and rendezvous exercise is designed to facilitate efficient practice of the CV or turning rendezvous. This particular rendezvous is in contrast to the running rendezvous performed earlier. Both have the same end result, joining individual aircraft into a larger flight. They have other similarities as well, such as bearing line, closure rate, and the basic rendezvous parameters of altitude and airspeed. A combination of the two, running/turning rendezvous, is often utilized when a flight is departing an airfield and desires to join together while en route to a mission area or to a follow-on destination. The CV or turning rendezvous is utilized when getting together as a flight is either more important or maybe even necessary prior to proceeding further. It is called the CV rendezvous because it is utilized frequently in the carrier environment, both during departure and in port holding on return to the ship. Rendezvous generally have 4 phases: pre-contact, maneuvering to the bearing line, and the final join-up. The pre-contact phase refers to everything that is done by flight members prior to the joining aircraft gaining visual contact with lead's aircraft. Lead establishes himself in a known location, at a known altitude, and at a known airspeed. The wingman goes to that location and finds the lead aircraft. The wingman then maneuvers to the lead's bearing line. Lead must maintain a stable platform with precise altitude and airspeed control and a steady 30 degrees angle of bank. Use of altitude hold and auto throttle can be very helpful. Another responsibility the lead has is flight safety. Other flights may be sharing the same squadron port holding pattern. Watching wingmen join and being a good lookout are competing objectives, so be aware. Once the wingman is on the bearing line, which is defined as the line connecting lead's outboard wingtip missile rail, resting on top of lead's outboard vertical stabilizer and the wingman's eye, he then sets closure. Geometry alone, assuming both aircraft have the same airspeed, will cause closure, but usually not enough. The amount of excess closure is measured by the amount of excess airspeed the wingman maintains. For example, if rendezvous airspeed is 250 knots and the wingman initially flies 300 knots, he has 50 knots of closure. This is generally okay when outside of 1,000 feet, but must slow to no more than 30 knots inside 500 feet and 10 knots during the join phase. Quite often, flights have more than one wingman, and so joining on the outside of the rendezvous turn allows wingmen to watch subsequent wingmen as they join the flight and not be on the blind side to the action. While flying the bearing line, if the wingman is forward of the bearing line, he is considered acute. If the wingman is aft of this line, he is considered sucked in relation to the bearing line. As they join, wingmen should always keep lead's aircraft on the horizon. There could be aircraft in holding patterns 1,000 feet below or above your altitude. Also, CV rendezvous are sometimes utilized in the landing and radar patterns, such as when Nordo aircraft require an escort. In these situations, if you're joining on another aircraft at 1,200 feet and you are low on the bearing line, and if visibility conditions are just so, flying into the water has happened and will happen again. Finally, the joining phase is simply a crossunder to the outside of lead's turn. Flight lead, or air wing SOP, will determine the location and parameters for rendezvous. On departure from the ship, squadron high holding is the altitude and 250 knots is the airspeed. In other situations, other airspeeds and altitudes can be set. For today's training, breakup and rendezvous will be at 15,000 feet and 300 knots. Lead will pick a cardinal heading to make the math easy. To begin, lead checks that he has room in the motor to perform the maneuver and that the airspace he needs is clear. He then breaks away into a level 180-degree turn, rolling out wings level, on altitude, and on airspeed. Dash 2 delays 2 to 3 seconds and then breaks into a similar 180-degree turn using radius of turn and G to roll out 1,000 to 1,500 feet in trail of lead's aircraft at 15,000 feet and 300 knots. He then broadcasts to set when ready.
Set.
On dash 2 set call, lead will begin a 30-degree angle of bank level turn in either direction at 300 knots. On seeing lead begin his turn, dash 2 will move out to the rendezvous bearing line, add power to increase speed for improved closure, 30 knots max at this range, using angle of bank to remain on bearing line. Lead's aircraft should be on or slightly above the horizon. The rendezvous bearing line is defined by placing lead's outboard missile rail on top of lead's outboard vertical stabilizer. It's difficult to see bearing line at this range, so knowing where to place lead's aircraft on your windscreen in relation to the canopy bow is important. We will show that in the next sequence. In this instance, it looks like the wingman is doing a good job of staying on bearing line. It's common and natural to slide low and a little sucked as you approach lead's aircraft. The final phase of the rendezvous is the join, which is simply a crossunder to lead's outboard side. If you have a little too much closure, idle power and speed brakes might be necessary.
That work okay?
Perfect.
Great.
As you watch from inside the cockpit, remember, power controls closure and angle of bank controls bearing line, i.e. whether or not you're on bearing line, acute, or sucked.
Okay, ready for the turn. I'll, yeah,
Same thing.
you let me know.
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. 15,000, going to 060 and 300 knots.
Copy.
Okay, there's 060, 15,000, 300 knots.
Okay, 2 set.
Okay, here we go, right.
Yeah,
Join it up.
trying to get the same thing from both inside and outside the cockpit.
Ah, okay.
Here again, you can see that making out details on Leeds aircraft is nearly impossible. You'll need to place Leeds aircraft somewhere on your windscreen that places you on bearing line. If you compare the airspeed readout on my HUD with the amount of positive or negative closure between me and Leeds aircraft, you should see a correlation. If lead is truly maintaining 300 knots, and if I maintain that same airspeed, I should still have closure due to geometry alone.
And I'm going to demo backing up a little bit here. Trying to show the effect of airspeed.
As you can see, placing Leeds aircraft in the notch between the canopy bow and the forward instrument panel works out pretty close to being on bearing line.
I'm going to demo going acute. And sucked. Low. And high. And now try to define a really good bearing line here. Yeah, are you on altitude hold for your airspeed by any chance, or ATC for your airspeed?
I was, and then I took it off. We're at 305 right now. 304. I'll
Okay.
get it on there.
That's okay.
You use ATC?
I do when I'm lead.
Okay, okay.
Okay, let's go ahead and do another lead change, and I'll just slide up your left side.
You want to do it in the turn, or you want me to roll out?
You can do it in the turn. It's okay.
Okay.
Hey, I've got the lead. And I'm going to come left.
Hollywood and I will now perform some overheads. First is the wing over. It's a 180-degree turn reversal. Overheads are particularly difficult in the sim. Again, more difficult than in real life. Lead must be smooth and you must have a specific plan. The overheads you'll see here were performed without a lot of practice. I think they look better on video afterwards than they did at the time they were performed. Some truly amazing editing. Starting parameters for the two maneuvers: wing over, 350 knots on a cardinal heading. Barrel roll, 400 knots on a cardinal heading. Advice for overheads: for lead, have a plan, be smooth, and once the maneuver starts, don't adjust power. For wingmen, corrections for position never change no matter what your attitude relative to the ground. What's important is your aircraft's attitude relative to lead. Now the barrel roll. It's a displacement maneuver.
And say your state. Okay, I've got 8.6 as well. I'm going to get us on a good cardinal heading to start the tack turns, and I'm going to accelerate to 350.
The next set of maneuvers will be 4 tactical turns or tack turns. They are tack turn left and right, the cross turn, and the in-place turn. There's also something called the check turn. To do these turns efficiently, you and your wingman must maneuver as one. It is important to maintain airspeed, altitude, and turn rate, i.e. G, during the turn. For today, lead will be at no power and 330 to 350 knots and 3 Gs. Using afterburner uses too much fuel, and more than 3 Gs causes a loss of airspeed. Both pilots should be aware aircraft heading prior to the start of each turn in order to determine the rollout heading, either 90 degrees left or right or the reciprocal. Tack turns are used to reorient the section to proceed in a different direction or to face a known or potential threat.
Okay, I'm going to use 100 as the base heading. If you look at your wingtips, you can see that's 190 and 010, and 280 is the reciprocal. Okay, you can go ahead and kick out to spread formation.
As the name implies, tack turns are turns used in a tactical environment. So, flight members should strive to maintain good lookout. Making the turns precise is needed to maximize mutual support. Performing precise turns and maintaining a good lookout are competing tasks, so use the tools you have, i.e. the helmet-mounted sight and auto modes of the radar. And of course, practice makes perfect. Part of a good lookout posture is clearing your wingman six. If you see something, call it out. For example, lead, brake right, bogey on your 6, 2 miles, closing.
Okay, the first will be a tack right, which means I'll start the turn, And when you could conceivably look down my intakes, then you want to start your turn to the right, and the new heading that we roll out on should be 190. And you want to try to keep me on the horizon. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get it started here since we're coming close to the area. So it would go something like fist flight, tack right. And I'd start my turn. And right about now, you start yours. And so you're a little bit sucked now, about maybe 20 degrees or so. And I'm just going to let you catch up a little bit, and then that's not a bad distance there. So I'm going to do another tack right, and so you'll start this turn. Fist flight, tack right. And the new heading will be 280. That one worked out pretty good. You're a little bit acute. So I'm going to go check left 20 degrees. So new heading will be 260. Okay, looking at your wings, the new base heading from a 260 would be 170 and 350. And the reciprocal will be 080. So this time we're going to do a cross turn, and in this case I'll go high. So when I call cross turn, you turn into me and I'll turn into you simultaneously. Fist flight, cross. I'm high. And the new heading will be 080. Okay, we're a little bit wide, but that's not too bad. Okay, let's do an in-place turn this time. And let's do an in-place turn to the left. So we both turn to the left at the same time. New heading will be 260. So fist flight, in-place left, go. Okay, not bad. Okay, why don't you rejoin into close cruise, and make sure you're up button 6.
Here are the same 4 turns viewed using Tack View. The starting position is combat spread, or just spread. For today's exercise, we define spread as wingman directly beam lead at 1 nautical mile, 6,000 feet, or co-altitude. The end position after each turn should mirror the start position. As you will see, this does not always happen. It takes practice to do this well. Aggressive maneuvering by wingmen for minor positional errors, or check turns called by lead for larger positional errors, are utilized to return the flight to proper position. When transmitting, use clear, concise, and accurate information. No ifs, ands, or buts. Finally, give command direction first, brake right, and then follow on with additional information as necessary, as in the example above.
Yeah, go ahead and come on back in. Close cruise. And understand, you're up button 6?
Yes.
Copy. Okay, I'm going to start a right turn. And I'm going to climb back to 8,000.
Range control, Fist 407 is departing overland.
Roger 407. Contact me on 344.025.
Copy.
Okay, let's switch over to button 11.
Overlord, Charlie 407 is back up. Request own nav to Charlie Oscar at 8,000.
Fist 407, Overlord. Clear down nav to Charlie Oscar, maintain 8,000.
And request picture.
Fist 407, Overlord. Roger, picture is clear.
Okay, you want to go ahead and just start setting your airplane up for the carrier.
Fist 407, Overlord. Contact Charlie Oscar on Mike November.
Roger. Fist 407 in flight is switching to Charlie Oscar on Mike November. And thanks for your help.
Okay, let's go over to button 3.
Marshall, Fist 407.
Fist 407, Marshall, copy. Go ahead with your lineup.
Roger, Fist 407 is a flight of 2, wingman Fist 406, marking father 162 at 54 Angels 8, low state 5.9.
Roger. Mother is case 2. ERC is 310 degrees. Ceiling is 1,600 with 10 miles visibility. Altimeter setting 2986. Fly heading 350. Maintain 8,000. Remain this frequency for approach.
Roger, case 2, altimeter 2986, heading 350, maintaining 8,000.
Approach, say state and intentions.
Fist 407, state 5.9, requesting 2 mid-cycle hookup practice case 3 approaches, 1 each. 406 first.
407, Roger. Descend and maintain 1,200. Come left heading 335. Intercept the final bearing.
Okay, I'm going to take it off autopilot now and start my slow descent. So just stick with me and we'll enter the clouds at about 5,000 or so. Pulling the power back just a little bit to keep from getting too fast. And my lights should be on for you.
Altitude.
406, first on the ball, break. 406, confirm, hook up.
406, hook is up.
Turn left heading 330, join the final course.
Roger. Fist 407, turning left to join.
Hey, it looks like we're approaching final, so I'm going to start coming left just a little bit here to about 320. Okay, and then the rest of the way. And stand by for gear. As soon as I roll out here. Okay, 3, 2, 1, gear. Okay, 3, 2, 1, full flaps.
407, say needles.
Fly straight and up.
Roger, 407, fly the needles.
Okay, it looks like the lights are on. And your little angle of attack indicator is probably blinking, a little donut. And that's because your hook is up, and that's the way you want it. Okay, we're a little bit right, of course, so I'm going to come a little left here. We're at 3 miles, so I'm starting down. Okay, at about 800 feet, we should be about 2 miles. So we're looking pretty close. Okay, I'm going to kiss off so you can fly the ball now. And I'm going to clean up, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hornet ball, 4.9.
Roger, ball. You're low. Don't go high.
And after you do your catch and go and clean up, look for me. I should be just off your nose.
And just let me know when you got me in sight.
407 Talio.
Okay, I'm going to come left. I'll be at 1,200 feet and 250 knots. And I'm going to roll out at 130 degrees. (1,200 feet, 250 knots roughly. And I see you back there joining. And when I give you the lead, you want to try to stay below about 1350 or so, much above that, and you're going to go back into the clouds. And just keep moving forward, and I'll join on your right side. And you've got the lead now.
406 has a lead. Approach Fist 406.
406 approach, go ahead.
406 has a lead. Ball flyer will be Fist 407, state 4.7.
Copy, break. 407, confirm, hook up.
407, hook us up.
Turn left heading 330, join the final course.
406 turning left 330 to join.
You can probably roll out about here. And then just intercept the ICLS needle. Yeah, what was that?
Turning a bit to the right.
Okay, sounds good.
Turning our left.
406, say needles.
Fly up, fly right.
406, fly the needles.
Enfield 1-1. Check landing gear. Wind 310 at 7 meters per second. Runway 05.
Copy that.
Hornet Ball 4.8.
Roger Ball.
Cleared for visual. Contact tower.
Visual. Visual.
Copy.
Okay, and you should be 250 and about 1,200 feet. Copy that. Okay, I've got the lead on the right. Okay, hook down. And say your state.
Approach, Fist 407.
407 approach, go ahead.
Fist 407 in flight is departing the pattern to re-enter the initial for the Case 2 recovery.
Roger, 407. Proceed to the 3 nautical mile initial, switch button 2.
Fist 407 copy, switching button 2.
And I'm going to turn into the overhead. And say your state. 2.8. Okay, I guess we don't want to waste any time here. And let's, in fact, let's go over to button 2 now, the two of us.
Enfield 1-1, inbound. Enfield 1-1, fly heading 61, port 4. QFE 297885, runway 05, to pass altitude.
Yeah, I heard it. And I'm turning in. This will be just the overhead.
Enfield 1-1, clear for visual, contact tower.
Okay, rolling out. And descending to 800 feet.
Fist 407 initial.
Enfield 1-1, check landing gear. Wind 310 at 7 meters per second. Runway 05.
Seven a beam. Seven Hornet Ball, 3
ball. Right for Lightem. Enfield 1-1. Taxi to parking area. 406 Hornet Ball 3.1. You're low. Power.
Fist 407, boss. Are you airborne?
Negative, boss. On the bow.
Then why are your lights on?